This is CyberSound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity, with your hosts, Jason Pufall and Stephen Maresca.
Welcome to CyberSound. I'm your host, Jason Pufall. Joining me today in the studio is Steve Maresca and Matt Fasaro, as always. Hey, guys.
How are you? Hey.
And joining remotely is Ken Grossberger. He's the Vice President and Chief Consultant at Elite Investigations. He's got a PhD, and he is part of Elite, who is a security company located in Yonkers, New York. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Hi.
So today we're going to actually talk a little bit about an area that we probably don't cover a lot, I think, as we chat internally here, but more risk management, I think, outside of the cyberspace, maybe a little bit more into the physical space. I think, Ken, that's your area of expertise. So I'd like maybe you spend a minute on introducing kind of that concept a little bit, and we'll segue from there.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Physical risk assessments, physical risk security, basically is all encompassing. We talk about enterprise security risk management. And as a general practitioner in the field, I obviously rely on the expertise of folks like yourselves, subject matter experts who have in-depth knowledge and experience to see things others might not. And obviously what we're attempting to do is catch problems while they're small, keep them less expensive, and eliminate if possible and mitigate as necessary, but basically to make sure that we are taking care of our clients and making sure they're safe.
So the partnership between Vancord Elite is really beneficial for, I think, clients on both sides, right? We don't bring a real deep background in doing sort of physical plant assessments, right? We through some of the regulatory requirements, we might do a cursory review, but our expertise is definitely in that cybersecurity space, the cyber risk management. I think the ability for you to utilize us when you've got some issues like that, and I think reciprocally for us to actually lean on you has been great so far. I think people have probably heard us talk enough about the cyber side. Describe what a physical security assessment might look like from your perspective, and how those engagements often go.
A physical risk assessment, threat assessment, there's a difference. One might be more safety, one might be more physical risk. Isn't just a check the box kind of exercise, although we use checklists. We're looking to make sure, first of all, we're subscribing to the needs of the client, what they're requesting. We generally like to take a comprehensive look, even if the risk is fairly narrow. Give you an example. There's a physical breach in security. There's people entering a facility that shouldn't be. Or there's folks getting injured. Or there's just a general kind of assessment where we're looking in a comprehensive way at everything that might happen. Everything from brand risk to reputation risk, safety risk, and of course, cyber risk. And if we come across things where we need to go deeper, it behooves us professionally and ethically to bring in legitimate experts, legitimate subject matter, folks like yourselves, to make sure that we get it right. And just again, we live in a very complex world. Things are fast changing. One cannot know everything. And the need for particular expertise is real, relevant, and of course, timely.
So you're actually talking about a couple of things in there that we probably should cover, right? The idea of reputational risk. Certainly, we talk about that as it relates to website defacements or incident response and some of the potential notification fallout there. What kind of things impact reputation that you see on a regular basis?
Well, we're talking about damage done and how that's measured. Usually it's subjective, but when we see, and we deal with a lot of major companies, a lot of major brands like as you do, and they're very concerned about their public perception. And if something happens, or people are getting injured or something like that, something is occurring, there's losses of some kind, whether it's loss prevention or some sort of damage being done, obviously it's difficult to recover a brand in that nature. And given the amount of investment that these large companies and these well-known companies have put into their names and their goodwill, they depend on us as the experts to come in and help them offset whatever damage has been done and to put it in the rearview mirror as fast as possible. And again, if we see something in your world, we are going to certainly bring you in to make sure that the client's reputation is intact, and if there was an issue, that it's recovered and that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I feel especially like today, reputation is so fragile with a lot of companies. So you do anything wrong, it's on social media, it's in news. This information gets spread so quickly these days that protecting reputation is probably a lot more important than ever.
I mean, it's an interesting point, right? Because for sure, a single customer can spread a lot of information really quickly nowadays, which they couldn't before.
Do you find, Ken, that reputation is driving a lot of the requests that you get, or what's your main driver that people come to you for?
Yeah, it definitely reputation is one of the keys. Even if they'll have an internal loss, something happens, they don't want it to go public. That requires a very confidential type of investigation or assessment. Find out what's wrong and fix it fast. Obviously, confidentiality is key in our industry, and we've got to make sure that the client is taken care of. Again, large companies, major names that everyone knows, even names that people don't know. You've done it before. Commercial office buildings, real estate companies, law firms, they're very, very concerned that somehow there's a public perception that is not so good. You can kill a market in a hurry, as you suggested before. News travels incredibly quickly, and bad news travels the fastest.
For sure.
So what are some common risks that you encounter? Like, common denominators that you experience, if there are some hot button items that you can share?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with personnel and folks doing things they shouldn't be doing. I'll give you a typical one. Someone accuses somebody of sexual harassment. True or not true, the damage is done. Usually it's a career ender, and nobody wants to be in the wrong end of a courtroom on this stuff. So our job is to go in and make sure that we can understand what the issues were and help offset it. Other kinds of things, just in terms of pure physical risk, is, again, entry control, failure to follow the rules, safety stuff, things like that. One injury, one break-in, one kind of a loss can really build its way into quite a difficult situation for a client. On your end, if you've got folks even seeing things like stealing laptops, somebody breaching security in their programs, hacking, things of this nature, you can roll up a reputation in a hurry, as you know. And that's where we come in and you come in to make sure that the client has a sense that this problem can be solved as quickly and as quietly as possible.
I heard you mention loss prevention in passing earlier. Is that really in the context where you're using it, loss of goods, intellectual property, tangibles associated with the business and, its actual sales to a customer base? Where's that land?
Well, the answer is yes. It's all of that. We think of loss prevention primarily in terms of retail, let's say, where goods are stolen. They talk about shrinkage, which is defined as the difference between inventory and what got sold. Something happened. It got stolen, it got broken, something, inventory miscalculation, something like that. But in the broader sense, loss prevention is part of loss control, which is anything that might occur. That I think broadly defines the client's risk and our involvement in making sure that risk is properly mitigated or offset completely.
Do you find that you get involved in any way in, say, insurance policy reviews or anything like that as part of risk mitigation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somehow we become insurance experts along the way, and
us too.
the fine print. Yeah. So you know what happens. You see something deep into a contract. Some offset was in there, and somebody tried to make the policy rating a little cheaper. And let's eliminate this. Let's eliminate that. And sure enough, an event occurs where you've got that exclusion, staring in the face. And then it's pure risk because it's the client against the world. There's no transferring the risk to the insurance company. So we do review that. It's part of what we do. And again, like as we do with you, if we feel we have questions, we certainly will reach out for an expert.
I'm curious, in cyber insurance at least, the presence of a prior incident has a tendency to make carriers more likely and willing to engage because it means that corrective action has occurred. Do you find that that is a similar pattern in your world, or not quite the case?
Yeah, as you know, insurance ratings are quite complex. Underwriters have to take everything into account. Depends on what they're using. A 3-year averaging method on losses. They're looking at loss runs all the time. But you've got a point in terms of knowing that the risk has already been somehow corrected or offset. That would account for part of it. But as you know, in insurance, if a pattern is developed or there's a large hit over the past 3 to 5 years, that's going to affect the ratings negatively. But then, as you say, is we can come back and say, yeah, but we did something about it, and the probability of that particular event occurring again is very minimal. Therefore, maybe we put the rating back in good standing for the client.
So I want to return to a question that I sort of briefly alluded to at the beginning. We just recently recorded a podcast where we talked about security fundamentals and really tried to have a discussion about, the things that every single business should be doing to enhance their security program. Many of the things that we talked about were free elements, like really, really basic things. From your perspective, is there anything that you feel every business should do to reduce their risk, right? Low cost, maybe low effort, but things that you see missed regularly that cause problems.
Yeah, certainly a number of things. Number one, have some sort of security safety policy or program. Easy to do. Security and awareness. If you see something, say something. Have places to go for that information. An email box. Some place where folks can say, I have some concern. Make sure that security and safety training are part of any new hire package. Have quarterly or semi-annual reviews, periodic reviews, making sure, in terms of pure safety, making sure that people are aware of their means of egress, that you have evac drills at least once a year, periodically enough. The whole concept of awareness, I think, is critical. Your security safety plan isn't something that should be sitting in the bottom of a drawer. Should be readily available and I think periodically reviewed. So if security safety risks become part of the corporate mission, the company mission, the organization mission, there's a far better chance of something not happening or initiating mitigation steps before the consequences become disastrous.
So, it's interesting that you mentioned security awareness, it's just awareness training, right? Having people who understand the requirements of a business, understand what's expected of them, understand where to stand, in a fire drill. They don't have to be complicated things, but so much of this does come down ultimately to communicating to employees the things that are expected of them, or the potential risks that a company might be concerned about. It's exactly the same on the cybersecurity side. There's no difference there at all.
Yeah, I mean, simple things, cybersecurity training, knowing what emails to open up and not, what attachments not to open up, knowing when you've been hacked. I mean, some folks just blindly move forward and open up things, and next thing you know, their computer gets infected. So
yeah,
then of course, then they really do need you because we got a big problem.
Right.
So we tend to fall into a storytelling mode occasionally to share some things that are helpful for our customers, and I'm wondering if there's any sufficiently generic but still helpful story that you can share that would exemplify your business, something that really, really communicates core competency and what you can deliver.
Yeah, let me give you one, an institutional one. We do a lot of work for religious organizations, and one is, let's just say, a soup kitchen. And the issue there is that they want folks to come in. And very often, the folks that are coming in are the folks that you would normally defend against. So you're violating every precept of access control because you don't have access control. You have folks coming in. So what we do then, of course, is first of all, you have to be always conscious, as you are, of the client's budget and culture. Those are two of the variables that are going to drive decision making in terms of whether or not to spend on security and what to spend on. So in those cases, in this one particular instance, we had to actually embed one of our officers on an undercover basis to make sure that if something happened, someone was readily present. We didn't want a police uniform. We didn't want an overt presence because that might have, taken a different tack with our culture. Another quick story, we also defend a lot of large malls. And this one particular case, there was a funky valve in their fire safety system. And this thing used to go off. And it read a low pressure system condition, and it set off the entire alarm system for an entire mall. Now, we couldn't tell people to just, ignore it, but we had to evacuate the entire mall, 5,000 shoppers and 600 staff. Obviously, in that particular case, we said, we better bring in some folks that know what they're doing with fire safety systems, and fix this is not something you can ignore. In that particular case, we were worried less about budget and more about just the look for the mall. You don't want to be in a mall where the alarm's going off and the strobes are blinking, things like that. That's just not a fun day at the store.
I personally really appreciate the story about the soup kitchen because I think it does demonstrate just how important it is to really understand your clients, right? And risk prevention is different for every business, and I think the tolerance or the needs are going to be different. So, understanding that and building programs that make sense for individual clients, it was certainly important to us, and I think it's helpful for people to recognize that it's not a one size fits all practice, right?
Not at all. As you know, in your work, you've got to customize your solutions. They've got to also, your client has to be have confidence in your reputation that you can help them, that you truly are interested in what's going on, and that you are going to get to the right solution at the right time and within their means, and that there is going to be a positive outcome, and in the future they can rely on you to come back just in case, or even just for a tune-up or whatever the services are required to make sure that things don't happen.
And I think I hear a phone going off, so maybe you're getting a client reaching out now with a potential problem, right?
Yeah, somebody needs cybersecurity.
So on that note, though, I think we want to end always by sort of letting our listeners know that if they wanted to talk a little bit more about just generalized risk management, either on the the cyber side or say the more traditional say business risk or physical risk side, to reach out to us on LinkedIn at Vancord or at Twitter at Vancord Security. We can keep talking. If we get some inquiries, Ken, we're happy to have you back. We can kind of keep the conversation going a bit. Any last thoughts before we do adjourn?
Just an overall comment. I'm in the industry over 40 years. You all have your own lengthy experience, and it's not just the amount of information. It's our ability to digest and translate that into positive action for clients, because we've seen these transactions, not hundreds, but thousands of times. And the ability to bring that expertise and that experience to assist clients, I think, goes beyond the profit motive. It gives us a personal sense of satisfaction that we are helping our clients in a very positive way. So there's a professional satisfaction. I think that means as much to us as the dollars and cents.
And I mean, that's a sentiment that we can certainly appreciate and share. So I think that's a great way to close. And on that note, we hope that folks got value out of this, slightly different perspective from what we normally bring. And if anybody has any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to us and we can keep the conversation going. But Ken, thanks for joining. We appreciate your time today.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Stay vigilant. Stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.